put out a note maybe last week that got like something like 2,000 likes or something like that. And I simultaneously gained several hundred subscribers just at the same time. So there's definitely a correlation there.
Many writers don't want to use X, formerly Twitter, anymore. They feel frustrated about what's been going on. If you are one of those people, I have super good news for you. There's a Twitter for writers, as I call it, most don't know about. It is social media like in the good old days because it's ad-free, there is no algorithm, and it helps you really discover new writers. It's called Substack Notes and is definitely a viable X competitor and alternative. Solopreneur and indie fiction author David Mcllroy joined Substack in 2019, and as many can relate, was just there. He was flailing around on Substack and didn't see real growth. Then his audience growth shot upwards. In less than 2 months, he gained over 1,400 subscribers. That is freaking bonkers, isn't it? And why did this happen? Well, David started making regular use of the Notes feature, the new Twitter for writers. Right now, the organic growth within Substack is tremendous. I bet our interview inspires you to join the Notes Club, have fun writing there, and sharing your work. Plus, you'll understand why you're ill-advised if you play the subscribe for subscribe or subscribe unsubscribe game some influencers recommend at the moment. David, I'm so thankful that you hopped on this Zoom call with me today. I'm a big fan of yours. From the podcast with Jenny Johnson, from Cageless, I know that you studied English and film. And I see you definitely as a creative and a businessman. How would you describe yourself, David?
First of all, Kristina, thanks very much for having me on. Really appreciate this. I'm a big fan of yours too, so it's really cool to get to chat to you here today. I describe myself as a writer, a solopreneur, as a creator, as you say. I'm quite an introverted person. I don't like the limelight an awful lot, so doing this kind of thing is always kind of intimidating, but it's easy with you because you're making it very easy for me. I love experimenting and figuring out how things work, and primarily I just love seeing other people succeed. I love helping people get to the point where they can achieve what they want to achieve. So I think everything kind of is encompassed into that idea, helping others succeed.
So, and I remember, David, the first time you asked me for a recommendation last year, and this year for the upcoming guest post. And since then, your solopreneur business has like exploded. Not only do you have your main business, but you also have 2 publications on Medium and 3 Substack publications now. Could you tell us a bit more about your solo business?
Yeah, so my solo business is called Trek NI. It's essentially a marketing platform for local businesses here in Northern Ireland. It started off as a hiking blog, telling people where they could go to hike in the mountains in Northern Ireland, and it kind of grew into a platform where local businesses, accommodations, cafes, experiences could connect with our audience and basically boost their own revenue as well. So that's like my bread and butter, if you know what I mean. And then the writing creation side of things with Substack and Medium is the second aspect of my overall income revenue stream, which is kind of growing to kind of match the first one. So yeah, Trek and I has been in existence for about 4 years now, and I've been writing online for about a year. But I've been writing overall for several years before that as well.
Mm-hmm. And are you then consulting people in real life and meeting them, or is this also online, digital?
It's mostly online. I do like coaching for some people as well, so I help them market their business and give them strategies and tips that they can implement on social media and things like that. But yeah, it's mostly done online. If I can do something through a computer, I'll always choose that over having to go out and meet people and stuff, because I just like to do things like this.
Do you also offer like coachings?
I think it is definitely something I will incorporate into what I offer, whether it's a standalone thing or it's part of my paid subscription. I did a call last night with my first ever sustaining member on Substack, or my founding member, as it would be called, which is great. I really enjoyed that. So I love to do more of that kind of thing in future. Offer that as an added extra or as part of the overall package.
I'd like to talk to you about your main Substack publication now, How to Write for a Living, which is about how to make an income from writing and earn a living as a writer. How many free subscribers and how many paid subscribers do you have today?
As of today, I have just over 5,700 subscribers in Substack in total.
Wow.
and only I think it's maybe 94 are paid between publications. So I'm close to getting my check mark. I still need to get about 20 paid subscribers to get the check mark because it only counts for like one publication. But yeah, it's growing really rapidly in a relatively short space of time, which is cool. I think I'll be on course to get to five figures in terms of subscribers by maybe August, September kind of time if things keep going the way they are, which is cool. So yeah, it's a nice platform to be on. You can't do this anywhere else, I don't think. So yeah, it's great.
Now let's go back to your crazy growth between November and January, like 58 days, where you gained 1,270 subscribers organically within Substack. That's an average of just over 21 subscribers per day. Why do you think did your audience growth skyrocket?
I think I came to Substack at just the right time. Like Notes have been around maybe for about a year whenever I first arrived or something like that. But I think it was only starting to really take off at that time. And I think I just made the most of the opportunity. Like I was kind of new to it. I was pretty green, as they say. I didn't really know anything about Substack properly before last year. And I think just that lack of inhibition on my part, I just kind of went for it. I connected with other people. I followed people. I just spent a bit of time every day reaching out. And I think whenever you have that initial follower base, it really does help everything that you put out to get more traction. So I did a lot of following initially, and I didn't do it to get followers in return. I just wanted to connect with people, and I think that just kind of got the ball rolling at the start. And then I just seemed to, I think I just wrote a few articles that really connected with people. I think at the start, and I think that just kind of snowballed things at that point, and it hasn't really stopped since then. Like I've probably gained not in a boastful sense, obviously, but I think I probably gained more followers than that period this month alone, or maybe last month it was, but that's the kind of rate that it's going at now. And that won't last forever, that'll change at some stage, but it's just a really good platform for growth right now. As I said, like there's nowhere else you can do this.
I think this aspect of Substack has kind of gone under the radar for a lot of people. Could you explain that in more detail? Because to come back to your growth that skyrocket, I think Notes is your big growth driver.
Yeah, I think it's gone under the radar of people because a lot of people see it as the social media wing of Substack, and there's like a negative connotation with that. I think people who've been on Substack for longer than me always kind of see it as a purely writing platform, and they don't like the social media kind of influence starting to creep in there. But I think a lot of people just don't know about it. Like people are still stuck on Twitter, they're still stuck on Instagram, all these other platforms they don't really do. And yeah, I think once people kind of wake up to Notes more in the next couple of years, like over the next couple of years, I think you'll see a lot more happening there, a lot more growth for people in general. At the minute, it's like a fertile farmland. It's kind of ready to be harvested, and people who are out there harvesting now are going to reap the rewards in the near future. So yeah, I mean, for me, like Notes has been a huge driver, as you say, along with recommendations and things like that. And yeah, I love it. I think it's just fantastic. I love the addition to Substack, and anything that works in this day and age that isn't suppressed by an algorithm is fantastic because it's so rare. And I think everyone should try and make the most of it while they can.
Could you, David, explain how Notes work for those who don't know how this like whole Notes Club works?
Yeah, I think it just works very similarly to most social media platforms, but with much greater visibility. So, for instance, if you posted a note on X or Twitter, it's going to get snuffed out pretty quickly, especially if it's got a link going somewhere else. And like LinkedIn will do the same thing, and Instagram and Facebook. If you try to take people off the platform, it will automatically snuff it out. I think the difference with notes is whenever you go on and you actually post a note, for the most part, a lot of your followers are going to see it, and it has a much greater chance of going viral. It works in exactly the same way as other social media platforms. You just put out a small snippet of written content, but it can also be video and images now as well. So if you know how to use Twitter, if you know how to use LinkedIn, you'll know how to use Notes. It's pretty straightforward, but with that added visibility aspect that those platforms don't have anymore.
So yeah, and what I read was Gunnar Habitz, he left a great comment. And he said, what I like about the Substack notes is it feels like the best of Twitter connected to the best of Medium, just with a twist of orange. How do you see this?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, actually. I think Elon Musk has been spending the last year talking about turning Twitter into the everything app. And I think Substack already is the everything app that he's missing. It does seem like that perfect blend of X or Twitter, LinkedIn, Medium, Instagram, all kind of blended into one. I think most people don't really know about it yet. If I talk about Substack, they're like, "What's that?" You know, I mean, they know about Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, but Substack kind of goes under the radar. And yeah, I think it's just kind of got a perfect blend of what everybody needs right now as a writer, and that ability to just write and make money from writing, but also promote in a way that feels genuine and gentle, and it isn't just follow for follow or attention economy. It's a real place for the actual creator economy to thrive in a sustainable way long term, which I love about it. So yeah, it's a lovely blend of all those platforms.
Yeah, and talking about X, I know that you spent 2022 growing your following on X by showing up like every day. And you started with 3 followers and ended up with 16,000. Now, I checked this today. Now you have more than 20,000, which is great, I think, for the book launch or for the launch of your novel. How did this growth strategy on X feel compared to your growth strategy on Substack?
So yeah, good research, and by the way, first of all, yeah, I mean, I spent 2022 actively focusing on Twitter massively because that was a time when it was easy to grow on Twitter. I was able to gain those 16,000 followers just by showing up and being consistent and posting with a bit of a strategy and that sort of thing and experimenting. And then, as I said, Elon Musk took it over and they changed the algorithm, especially last year, excuse me, in September 2023. Everything was going relatively okay, and then they made a tweak and it just tanked Twitter overnight. And that's why I hope Substack doesn't change and do anything like that anytime soon because it's working right now.
Wow.
It feels organic, it feels natural. I don't really have a strategy for notes. I just kind of go on there and just post what I wanted to post at the time. The only strategy I have is trying to be on there every day and post a few things, but there's no real tactic for what I'm actually posting. Um, which is so different from Twitter because you had to really be strategic about it and really think about it in advance. It's sad that Twitter has become what it is, but it's nice that Substack has kind of picked up the reins and has the potential now to go on and eclipse it. I think in the next few years if it does things right.
You already shared that many people are afraid to use it, or they say, wow, I don't want notes here because I wanted to escape from this. And now it's on Substack. What do you tell those people? How do you think about this?
I think well, two things. First of all, I think if you don't want to use notes, you don't have to. It is possible to grow on Substack without it. You don't have to be on there. It's not a prerequisite. It's just a helpful growth lever that you can use. You can pull that lever and grow. But I think I like that it's brought those aspects in. I think it's useful. I think it's essentially used what has worked in the past on other platforms, and it's used it effectively. And there is a nice blend, I think, with it. I think initially there was a bit of a confusion about subscribers and followers. They obviously made a change recently where you could see your followers compared to your subscribers, and they rolled that back because people didn't really like it. I think, but I think it's effective. It's useful. You don't have to use it. You can if you want to. It's nothing to be afraid of. I don't think it's anything to be overly negative about. People will try to game it in future, the way they try to game direct messages. Like I get direct messages all the time from scam accounts, and I just block them straight away. You will see people trying to game notes further down the line once more people catch on to what's happening with it. But I think if you just show up every day and you genuinely try to connect and genuinely try to share useful, valuable information, or just be a real human on notes, I think that does have a real positive impact. And yeah, I just hope it continues the way it is, as you say, and evolves in a natural, helpful way.
Hey, it's Kristina here. Do you want to get notes? Substack's internal social media network? I get you and I got you with my Substack school. Join the school and you'll create a joyful notes action plan to take action and be seen on notes. You'll get a notes vault with inspiring viral posts that get your creative juices flowing. And you can meet David live inside my school. Want to join? Super! Just become a paid subscriber to my newsletter. I will link to that in the description box below. What advice do you have for those who are experiencing frustratingly slow audience growth with notes at the moment?
This is probably the advice you don't want to hear, but just keep going. I think a lot of people, when something becomes difficult, they just give up and they say, "Oh, this isn't for me," or this person knows something I don't, or they know somebody on the inside. There's a trick to this, but there really isn't. Like I started on notes from scratch, and I've been able to do it. And if I can do it, anybody can. There's nothing special about me in that sense. So, I think if you can connect with other people and network and make friends on the platform, that makes such a difference. Like if you're showing up and you're seeing people who you actually know and you're friends with, and you want to support each other, not because they'll scratch your back if you scratch theirs, but because you just genuinely want to help them because you're friends. Make it a game for yourself. Be competitive with yourself. See how you can challenge yourself and experiment and try new things. Keep it interesting. If it becomes stale, you will get bored very quickly. So set little targets for yourself each week or each month, and just say, I want to try and get to this. And then if you get there, then you can analyze how. If you didn't get there, you can analyze how. And as well, don't complain about it. A lot of people jump onto notes and they just complain about notes and say how bad it is, or I can't find anybody, or this is so terrible. And people do the same in Medium as well. They write articles saying how bad Medium is all the time, which I don't understand. Well, it does generate traction, actually. That's maybe why they do it. But I think being positive and just being open-minded and making it a game with yourself is a really simple way of keeping it interesting. And yeah, stick at it. Nobody achieves anything significant within a year, genuinely. You look at Eve Arnold on Medium, she's a really good example of this. And she always says, it takes like 3 to 5 years for something really significant to happen. And then when it does happen, it goes quickly. And most people aren't willing to wait 3 to 5 months for something to happen. So if you're experiencing slow growth, just keep going and don't write yourself off unless you've been doing it for maybe more than 2 or 3 years and haven't seen any traction. There are people out there who are further ahead of you, and you can learn from their example. So yeah, keep your eyes open and just keep going.
If I'm looking back, or if I'm thinking about my email list, so many people from Medium who've been following me for Medium for 3 years or maybe 2 or 1 year, they also joined my email list, which is pretty awesome. And this is all about building connections and chatting with others from around the world. It's given so much positive energy. And this other stuff, this like growth hacking, there is so much negative energy in this, except the one who's promoting it, because of course this guy of course you are successful with it, and then apparently this guy has to know how to do it. So yeah, this is just a quick heads up. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Growth hacking is a short-term measure. It can help in the short term. I think sometimes it is good to look at how to get a bit of initial growth going on a platform, because you can't really, if you don't do anything at all, it's very hard to make anything happen long term. So doing a bit of following and connecting and being really active in that sense at the start is useful, but I think long term it doesn't work as a strategy, and it'll burn you out as the person who's trying to connect, and it'll burn people out who you're approaching. You talked about publications as well, and the ones you're subscribed to. At the start, I was only subscribed to a few, and I struggled to really get into Substack because of that. I struggled to find things to read. And now, if I read one article from somebody, or maybe a couple of articles from somebody who I think is good, I'll subscribe to their publication. I've turned off the email function, so I don't get like tons of emails coming into my inbox every day, because it was overwhelming at one point. And now I just use the little, inbox kind of tab on Substack and just scroll through that. And as you say, if there's headlines that stand out, I'll read those or I'll save them for later. And yeah, like you do have to set aside time to read, because life gets in the way, and it's hard to sit down and read long publications and long posts unless you have a bit of time to do that. So, but yeah, like I'm subscribed to probably dozens of publications at this point, and will probably subscribe to more as time goes on. And I'll still only be like the tip of the iceberg with publications, because I'm a Substack, because it's just a wealth of information and knowledge. Even the guy I was talking to yesterday, he's going to start sharing his stories, and he's got a fascinating story, and it'll be amazing publication if he decides to do it. And that's just one of many. So yeah, gaming the system, short term measure, but publications, subscribing to them, actually engaging with other writers in a genuine way is the way to go long term, I think.
And
Yeah.
I often hear from people that they wonder if only authors with paid subscribers are highlighted. Do you know anything about this?
I don't think it impacts notes that much. It depends maybe if you're on the following tab or the for you or whatever it's called tab or the explore one. It might push people with more paid subscribers to the top in the same way that it does with like the leaderboard and the recommendations and things like that. But I would imagine it's probably not the case. I think with notes, who you're following and connecting with is probably what you see at the top of your feed, and the algorithm probably bases it more on the kind of content you're looking at. So if you like pictures of dogs, like I would on Substack, it'll probably show me more people who share pictures of animals. And if you like longer form information kind of content and notes, it might show you more of that. But I don't think that necessarily means that people who don't have tons of paid subscribers are getting buried. Otherwise, it is just basically Twitter at that point. I mean, I definitely see notes from people who have like 10 subscribers and don't have any paid subscribers every single day. So it might get to that point eventually, but I think at the minute it's still pretty organic.
David, how do you feel about your email list? If you say you have now almost like 6,000 subscribers, how does this make you feel?
It's good. It's validating. It's nice to actually see that growth happening because I was using platforms before that required a lot of effort and didn't really yield very many results. It would have taken. I mean, if it kept going with them, I would have been lucky to have four-figure email list at this point at all. So it's cool that Substack is able to do that effectively. And yeah, I kind of see it as a step. I'm one of these people who I struggle to celebrate milestones. I have to like actively make myself do it. Because whenever I reach the milestone, I just think, okay, what's the next thing that's coming? Like whenever at this point, what I'm thinking is, how do I get to 10,000 subscribers? Once I get to there, I'll be thinking, how do I get to 20,000? That sort of thing. So it doesn't really ever stop in my brain. I just kind of keep going. But yeah, it is cool. It's really exciting. Like I'm not gonna deny that. I think there's a nice dopamine rush that you get from getting subscribers, and because as you say, subscribers are so different from followers. Like followers are largely meaningless at this point, because algorithms just snuff out everything that you do. But you can reach subscribers directly, which is the really exciting part of it. Yeah.
David, do you have any other tips on how to convert those followers into subscribers? Because so many people complain. They say, wow, I have, I don't know, 1,000 followers, but only 100 subscribers.
Yeah, I think as you say, it's about quality content. Thinking about what you put out. I mean, again, notes is very organic, and I don't strategically plan out my notes at this point. I might in the future, but at the minute, it's very much just whatever comes into my head in the moment. I'll just post it. And sometimes those thoughts are good, and sometimes they're not that great. But I actually like the fact that we have followers on the platform because otherwise you'd have to go to social media to find them. The fact that we have a base of people to draw from, that we can put our content in front of them on a regular basis without the need to share lead magnets onto Twitter or TikTok or Instagram or that sort of thing. So Substack has its own built-in audience right there. I think previously, as good as Substack was, you would have had to look externally to find that base to draw from. And I think this change that they made is really interesting because it does challenge writers to produce better content and be more creative about what they do. I don't think you can just put out anything now in terms of your posts and just hope for the best. And you have to really think about what headlines are going to grab attention. As you say, you just scroll through your publications, and you won't necessarily read everything. So you have to really stand out with your headline. Same for Medium as well, obviously. And then once you actually get people into your article, you have to have content that delivers and actually teaches them something, and they walk away with a valuable lesson learned. It's about standing out, but not in an attention economy kind of way, where you're just trying to like be controversial or something like that, but you're trying to like deliver really genuine value to that pool of followers in the hope that they will think, huh, this is really, really good. I want to make sure that I subscribe to this so I don't miss it in the future, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think this shows that followers on Substack don't have to be a bad thing. They can be a good thing because all those followers, a potential you can see for your newsletter because these people would be interested in you, in your personality or your publication.
I think what people crave in 2024 and going forward is authenticity. Because I think Gen Z that's coming through, they are immune or largely immune to traditional advertising methods. So disruptive advertising, like in TV shows or ads popping up, it doesn't really affect them anymore. They just kind of breeze past it. Whereas my generation probably would have paid attention to it. So I think if you can be an authentic, real person in what you write, in the pictures that you share, in the videos that you take, even the way you take videos now, I've heard that people just want a camera held up to someone's face more than anything else, and just someone just recording in the moment, particularly on like Instagram Reels and that sort of thing, and TikTok. So yeah, I think if you can be a real person, like is it Tom Cox? Is that what you call him on Substack? He shares just pictures when he's out for a walk every day, and like I love that stuff. Like I eat that up.
Mm.
Pictures of animals and fields and trees and things like that. Like I love that. So he doesn't really bend to the usual rules in terms of what he writes. He just writes in blocks of text. He doesn't put white space in, doesn't break things up. But people love his stuff because it's just authentic and it's him, and he's talking about his real life. And I think because of AI going forward, people just want to know they're talking to a real person, or reading content or watching content created by a real person. So I think if you can take that and put that into notes, and put that into the videos that you create and the way you do podcasts and all that sort of stuff, you will garner a community around you, and the community is what makes your newsletter stick and subscribe, or not subscribe, expand and grow, rather than just firing out content to people and hoping that it reaches them, you know.
So I think recommendations are huge. Again, more than 2,000 subscribers via recommendations. How about you? And how are you combining recommendations and notes for your growth?
Yeah, so yeah, as I said, notes is the kind of fast lever, and recommendations is a slower one, but notes takes more effort. You have to spend more time on notes and show up every day, whereas recommendation just kind of happens in the background if you can connect with the right people. I actively try to connect with people who have engaged with on Substack like yourself, and do mutual recommendations, because I think our content aligns and our publications match up, and we're gonna appeal to the same kind of reader. Think of us as Substack editors and writers can find the right people to connect with. You don't need a ton of recommendations. You just need the right people. And if you get a certain amount every year from those people going forward, you'll organically grow your Substack in the background, which is really, really cool. Like I know obviously other platforms do this kind of thing, like ConvertKit, and I think Beehive does it as well and stuff like that. But I think recommendations is so much more powerful on Substack. And I think there are three levers to growth, I think: notes, recommendations, and then your content schedule, which is a big aspect of it too. And none of them require a massive amount of pre-planning. You can just kind of get them in flow, and then just kind of go with it, and it works really, really well. The more organically you can do it, and the more naturally you can do it, I think the more you will see organic growth going forward. So yeah, recommendations is great, and I love that. And I maybe have something like a sixth of my following is from recommendations so far, something like that. And that will probably grow over time. That percentage will get bigger. But yeah, it's a great feature, isn't it?
We have this like audience overlap. This is one way you can do it with recommendations. So you can see in the stats if there's an audience overlap, or you just like think about, would there be any value for my subscribers if I'd recommend this person? This is the one thing. Then the other thing is, I just like this person. I want to help this person. I want to support this person. And the other thing is, this is not my topic, but still I think there's value in it for my subscribers. Is this something you do also do, or do you only like focus on your topic or topics?
A bit of both. I try to stick within the niche as much as I can, because it just makes more sense to promote people who are overlapping. But at the same time, I think Substack does do some of that work for you. I think whenever you subscribe, it will show you the recommendations from the person you're subscribing to that most align with your interests. So
Hmm.
if I was recommending people who talked a lot about dogs, for instance, or something like that, it would show the potential subscriber that recommendation if they were also interested in dogs. But if they weren't, it would show them withdraw from my recommendations and show them something that was applicable. I think in the moment, I think on your like homepage on Substack, it shows your recommendations down the side, and that changes. It doesn't show the same one every time, and I think it changes based on your interest. So there is an algorithmic approach to that. The Substack will kind of handle for you. But certainly, yeah, if I like a publication, if I think it's great, I will recommend it, regardless of whether or not it's definitely aligned. But for the most part, I will try to stick within the niche because it just makes more sense.
You, David, you say that you see a direct correlation between your notes and spikes in your subscriber growth. Is there a specific way to find out how many subscribers subscribe or follow you because of your notes?
Yeah, I don't think there is a way to say for sure. People have asked me this as well more than once. I think you just have to take logic into it and into the equation, because I can see that whenever I have a note that goes viral, that gets tons and tons of likes and engagement, I do get a spike in subscribers. I mean, I put out a note maybe last week that got like something like 2,000 likes or something like that. So it went viral in terms of Substack, and I simultaneously gained several hundred subscribers just at the same time. So there's definitely a correlation there. On the days whenever my notes aren't gaining much traction, I will have fewer subscribers coming in. So you can't say for sure. And I think Substack probably wants to keep that kind of vague, because if they made it clear, people will just start to try and game it. Yeah, there's definitely correlation, but there's no direct way to tell at the minute. And what I was saying as well about the algorithm showing you people who you're interested in and stuff like that for recommendations. That's just my opinion. I'm not exactly sure if that's definitely happening, but from what I've seen, I'm definitely seeing publications that are applicable to me whenever I apply to, or whenever I follow somebody and subscribe to them. And if that wasn't an algorithmic approach, I would just be seeing like the random recommendations that weren't applying to me. So that's just a natural system I think they've built in that makes sense and helps Substack grow as well.
Do you think we are already like past peak this moment where Substack used to be like this paradise and this island, or do you think we can still enjoy it,
Yeah,
even though we now have videos on the
yeah,
platform?
yeah. Again, I haven't been around on it long enough to say for sure. I think when I've been on it maybe a few years, I'll be able to have a better opinion on that. But at the minute, it feels really good. Like it feels organic. There's nice community. Obviously, there's always bad eggs on any platform. Like I get the occasional random comments from some really hateful person, or someone pops in to direct messages and tells me something terrible. But that's just a given with social media and the internet. You can't get away from it. The trolls are out there, and you just have to block them when they come along and hope that it kind of suppresses that as much as possible. But yeah, like it's a nice place. It does feel like a bit of a utopia right now compared to other social media platforms, and hope it continues for a while.
What does viral mean for you on Notes?
I think viral is when you get kind of maybe like over 1,000 likes or engagement notifications, that sort of thing. Anything at all, really. Like I think if you're getting anything in that region, it means it's getting a lot of visibility. And again, you can see that correlate it in the number of subscribers you're getting at the same time. It's hard to tell because there are people out there who have followings that are massively bigger than mine, whose engagement is really, really low. Like I've seen people with 50,000 subscribers, or in their network on Substack, and on their posts and publications they're getting like 10 likes, that sort of thing. So their engagement is terrible in comparison. And I would imagine those people probably moved a mailing list from somewhere else on the Substack, and then that engagement hasn't carried over. So I think anyone who has built a list, has built a following organically, natively within Substack, stands a better chance of growing quickly and going viral than somebody who's imported a list from somewhere else, because the people who came from somewhere else aren't already on Substack and don't know how it works and aren't used to it. So you're giving yourself an automatic disadvantage. So I think if you can grow from scratch here, it's great. But virality, yeah, I think over 1,000 notes of engagement is a good indication that something's going viral.
How does your day look like, and how much time do you spend writing notes and answering comments?
So the 6 o'clock thing is something I was better at in the past. I'm not as good at it right now, but I want to get back into that rhythm. There was a time whenever I would get up at 6 every day and I would spend like a couple of hours writing fiction in the morning, and then I would like have breakfast and then get into everything else I had to do. I think Medium and Substack has kind of changed that pattern a little bit because now my writing block is everything from when I get up until lunchtime. So I spend more time writing than I used to because it's more of an income stream than it used to be. So now everything from like lunchtime onwards is everything else is like my other business essentially. But in terms of writing notes, I don't spend an awful lot of time on it. I literally would maybe spend if I wrote 5 notes in a day, that might be 5 minutes. But I might spend more time engaging with those notes and like replying to comments. And I'm always behind on comments, especially on my posts on my publication. Like I have so many comments, I need to go back and reply to them because people leave great comments and stuff. But yeah, it's I try to keep the time as minimal as possible, because the less time you spend on it, that whole saying that the time you spend on something will expand, or your work will expand to fill the time you give it. So if you allocate 30 minutes for something, you will do it in 30 minutes. If you allocate 4 hours, you'll take 4 hours to do the same thing. So I just try to spend as little time as possible on notes, and try to keep it more organic and natural, and I just reply what I feel like replying in the moment, and not think about it too much.
And talking about the content of notes, there are people who say what works well is like funny memes, facts, accomplishments, personal anecdotes, personal images, slice of life, inspirational quotes, motivational posts, and so on, so on. Do you have any tips and tricks for other people who want to use notes the right way?
I think most people like like small digestible chunks of content. So if you can say something as succinctly as possible, if you can say something in 5 words that somebody else might take a page to write, that's so much more effective than talking too much. A lot of the time as well, what I'll do to keep notes easier for myself is I'll take snippets from articles I've written, particularly on Medium. I'll take like a line or a few words from something that stood out to me whenever I read back through my article, and I'll just post that on notes. Used to do that on Twitter as well, and it's really helpful because a lot of the time Medium's a great testing ground for stuff. This is what I like using it for, because you can find out what works and what doesn't, and what resonates and what doesn't. If someone highlights a line on your Medium article or maybe replies to it or whatever, that's a good line to use in a note on Substack or a post on Twitter, that sort of thing, or something you can expand into another article in future. So recycling and repurposing content is a real key to not burning out, because if you do try to write original stuff all the time, your brain's just going to get fried. You're not going to have enough imagination to keep doing that all the time. What will happen then is you'll go through periods where you don't post as much, or you post kind of stale things, or you start to slip into posting complaining, like negative kind of things. As much as that might garner interest, it's not really what people want. They don't really want to hear you complain about stuff, especially the platform that you're on, because that's only going to draw out the trolls, the people who also like to complain about things. And once you start to surround yourself with negativity on a platform, you'll start to go down a dark path. So if you can stay positive, if you can reuse content from somewhere else, and keep it short and digestible as much as possible, I think that's the stuff that stands out the most. But again, I'm still experimenting. Like, video's a new thing now. Like, images do really well on Substack because it's like the Instagram for writers, as they say. So for everybody, just keep experimenting, try different things. If you post 5 notes, post 5 different kinds of notes in a day and see which one does best, and then do more of that.
Is there anything you can recommend regarding the format of a note?
Yeah, I think Whitespace always does well. I think most people, if they see a block of text, it's scary, and they'll automatically not want to read it because it's like a time commitment straight away. Like you can almost measure the amount of time it's going to take to read that block of text just by looking at it. Whereas if something's broken down in a little single sentences or even bullet points, people will automatically think, okay, this is going to take like 30 seconds to read, and I can spare 30 seconds of my time. So I'll allocate my time towards that, and I'll ignore the one that's just a block of text. So keeping notes nicely broken up. I've heard the rule. It's like a 1-1-2-1 or 1-3-1, where the start of an article should often be like a single line, then 2 or 3 lines in a small paragraph, then another line, and that's your introduction, because that draws people in enough to want to keep going after that. Whereas if it's too long at the start or it's too many single sentences, it kind of does something psychologically to you where you don't want to keep going. You have to like differentiate and vary what you're doing in an article as much as possible, and that goes for notes as well, I think.
Hey, it's Kristina. I'm so glad you are here. Right now, the organic growth within Substack is tremendous. Capitalize on notes now and grow from the inside out. With my Substack school, you'll also join the Notes Club. I'll show you how. We'll talk about the strategies to get subscribers. We talk with inspiring voices who rule the notes game. And you can connect with others, hold each other accountable, and share your wins. Join our amazing crew of writers now by becoming a paid newsletter subscriber. I will link to that in the description below. You may have heard that there are some influencers from other platforms who run challenges where they advise people to subscribe to more than 50 other Substacks and only stick to the ones they subscribe to. They are advised to make an Excel list, write down the names, what they write about, whether they follow them, subscribe to them, engage or not, and then weed them out. What do you think of these follow for follow growth techniques?
I'm not a big fan of follow for follow. I think following itself is legitimate, and some people shy away from it. They think you can't follow anybody else on a platform because it somehow detracts or degrades your own network or your own base, which I don't really get. Some people refuse to follow other people on platforms, but I think if you're just purely following in the hope that they'll follow you back, and as you said earlier, if they don't follow you, or if you don't follow them back, then they'll like unfollow you again, that sort of thing. I think that's a silly way to try to grow long term. So yeah, I think I mean again, followers are not massively valuable. It's only if they convert over into being email subscribers that you actually own your list. Otherwise, you're just renting it from a platform. So I think the more valuable thing you can do is create content that engages with people and actually provides value. And it seems so simple. We hear it all the time from other creators, but it really does just come down to that. And the creators that have succeeded long term are the ones who've stuck by those core values, I think, online.
Every week you hop into Substack chat, and I think this is another chance to connect and engage and feel closer to those who reply. What are you offering your subscribers, and do you have any tips on using chat?
So I think I haven't used chat enough yet. I'm going to use it more in future. I try to just jump in once a week or so and just try and engage. Just ask them a question like, "What are you reading right now? How's your writing going right now?" That sort of thing. And it does generally produce a good response. And people within the thread can also engage with each other, and they can, if you ask what book you're reading, other people can get book recommendations from that. And I think it's a good tool for paid subscribers too, because whenever you put out a thread for paid subs, the free subs can see the threads there, but they can't see the content of it. So there's kind of that FOMO thing there, and they're missing out on something. And it might be another little trigger that maybe moves them towards one to become a paid subscriber. Something I'm doing at the minute is I'm giving paid subscribers the opportunity to have their recent articles featured in my roundup posts on Saturdays. So I'm taking some of their posts and I'm adding them to the list of links that I put out. So it gives them a bit more exposure. It gives them a chance to reach more of my audience as well. And it's just another little perk I can add on, and I can use chat to get that information from them as well. So yeah, I'll do more with it in the future. I think with all the different aspects of Substack, once I kind of nail it more, I'll use it more and incorporate it more in my overall strategy. But yeah, it's a nice feature.
And how do you think about the direct message feature? Do you use it often?
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, it's just a simple tool that, as you say, reduces the friction. If you want to reach out to people, if I want to do a mutual recommendation with somebody, I can reach out to them there. If I've been interacting with them on notes, you don't have to kind of go a long way around by sending them an email. There's obviously the dark side to it because people are sending you spam stuff as well, which isn't good. But generally, if someone pops up in a direct message and they just say like "hello" or "how are you," and there's been no prior connection with them, you just know to like ignore them straight away. So yeah, it's useful. It's a useful feature. It's useful for helping me to get guest writers onto my publication as well. So definitely using it for that. And yeah, anything like that Substack can do that aligns it more with the positive aspects of social media. I'm all for that, definitely.
Yeah, and I know, David, that you are tired of the like Medium versus Substack slugfest. So how are you combining both platforms, and how are you handling all this?
So I think with everything, once you kind of work out a rhythm and a strategy for your content. As I said, for me, that's the third lever in terms of your growth strategy, and notes, recommendations, and your actual publication schedule. I publish 6 days a week on Substack between the three publications, and I post most days on Medium. And it's just about working it into a rhythm. Again, I'm lucky because I'm a solopreneur. I set my own schedule. I don't work a part-time job. My business is obviously has its own compartment in my day, but I can decide when I'm going to do everything else. So um, yeah, it's just a matter of managing it, keeping it simple, not trying to overburden myself, and try to stick to what I say I'm going to do. Sometimes I get a bit behind, but I try to get out in front of it as much as I can, try and schedule things in advance and have drafts all laid out. It does require work, and not everybody can do that because they don't have the time that I have. That's my unfair advantage is the time that I have to spare. So but yeah, it's just a matter of trying to be strategic about it, I think.
You also used to send out one guest post. Is this still a thing that you do this once per week?
Yeah, so a lot of the time at the minute, the only reason I'm not doing it more is because I haven't been active enough. I haven't been connecting with guests enough to get the stuff coming in. But yeah, at the minute, the strategy for me, for instance, is for each publication is one post written by me per week and one guest post per week. And then David Mcllroy fiction, which is just my fiction, is just stuff for me, obviously, and that's only once a week for that one. But it keeps it manageable. If you can have guest posts lined up in advance, it means you can schedule those in advance and they're all kind of laid out, and it reduces the burden on me as a writer to feel under pressure to write more. I love doing like deep dive articles. I'm doing more of that kind of stuff now. I think that's where the most value is for me as a writer and for my readers. So the more time I can allocate towards researching those kind of things and actually writing them, and the more value there is for my writer or my readers, and the more value for my free subscribers there is out there, the greater the chances that they'll convert to being paid. Not because of all the perks that I offer, I don't think, but because they can see the value that my free subscribers get, and then that will then make them think, what am I going to get for being part of the paid tier? You know what I mean?
So many people think volume is key, no matter what platform they write on.
I think there's a balance. I think you do need a certain amount of volume. I think if you don't engage at all, and if you don't post at all, or if you do very, very little, you're not going to see that growth happening. But at the same time, you can post like 2 or 3 times a day in terms of your actual posts. Like the stories you put out, you can engage 50 times like I did in a day, and it doesn't really move the needle. I think it only kind of goes so far, and then it kind of hits a ceiling. So like for me at the minute, in March, I was engaging about 20 times a day. It was like,
Wow.
reading 20 stories and leaving a hopefully valuable comment. And I was aiming to publish at least 20 articles in the month, and I sort of exceeded that a little bit. But this month I haven't engaged as much, and it hasn't really reduced my income massively. It's only changed it slightly. So I think as long as you show up and engage a bit and kind of are on the platform, and as long as you post regularly enough to be seen and provide value, then it's okay. I think if you try to go too far, you'll only burn yourself out, and you'll burn out your audience, and you'll run out of ideas for things to write about. So there's a balance to that.
So, David, in Congress, you now have your verified author badge with your upcoming novel. As far as I know, you wrote 3 books so far. Could you tell us a bit more about your novel and about your books and the writing process?
So yeah, I've written 3 books. My first debut novel is coming out on the 31st of May. It's called The Soulburn Talisman. It's a young adult fantasy novel that is inspired by the landscape of Northern Ireland and Irish mythology that I kind of grew up with. And yeah, I just wanted to write a story that was for young people. I started writing it during the pandemic because I just had these ideas, and I just thought, you know what? I love fantasy. I love fantasy fiction. I want to have a go myself. So I just did it. And I wrote it within a year, and then I spent the last few years trying to get it published, and it's finally got to that stage now. My other 2 novels are adult horrors, so they're a lot longer and very different. And I wrote those in the space of sort of 6 months at a time, in the mornings, as I talked about before. And I'm just about to start writing the sequel to The Soulburn Talisman now as well. So now that that's finally out there, or will be out there very soon. I'm going to start writing the next one. And that's exciting too. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, my writing process is generally an hour and a half to 2 hours a day in the morning, and I'll try to write between 1,000 and 1,500 words a day, which means I'll generally write a novel in about maybe 3 months. You can write it in that time, and then you go through the editing stage and all that sort of stuff too. So yeah, it's fun, it's exciting. I love writing fiction, and I'm really interested to see how the promotion techniques I'm using at the minute impact on how many sales I get. And I love experimenting, so I'm looking forward to seeing how I can change that process in future and what I can draw from it.
Now you already talked about like your launch techniques and your launch plan, because I think that Substack and Medium and X, of course, are also part of your launch plan. Could you share a bit more about this?
Yeah, so again, it is a big experiment at the minute. I don't really know what I'm doing to some extent. I'm just kind of testing out and seeing what happens, and kind of taking ideas from other people and stuff. But I think book promotion and book marketing is something that a lot of writers, a lot of authors who write books really struggle with. They love to write the book, but they hate marketing it, and they expect the publisher to do that for them, which is not the case. Publishers really don't do it. They do it just to an extent. If you're like a celebrity, they'll invest, tens of thousands of pounds in marketing for you. But if you're not, they're not going to do it. And I've seen that happen to a lot of writers. So I'm testing it out. I'm basically releasing little bits of content from the book over the next few weeks. So I've released like the cover and the map that's inside the book. I'm releasing the first 3 chapters over the next 3 weeks on Substack. So I want to see what that does. And once I have some reviews from the advanced readers who are reading it at the minute, I'll share those as well. And they might create some content around that as well, like videos and stuff too, which will be cool. And then beyond that, I'm going to keep doing that and keep experimenting and try and see, well, what happens post-launch after your book actually is live? How do you keep promoting it? How do you put stuff out there into the world? And how do you keep getting more reviews coming in for it? So it's all an experiment, and we'll see what happens. And I'll write about how it goes further down the line as well.
This is so interesting because so many Substack writers want to write a book, and you did it. You even wrote 3 books, and seeing now how this all worked out in this like launch period is so interesting. So to sum it up, you wrote this book and you edited on your own, and or did you send it to an editor and then you now self-publish it via Amazon KDP, right?
So the process is, for me, I wrote it, I set it aside for about 6 weeks to look at it. I edit it myself, do a couple of drafts of that. I send it to beta readers, so like family, friends, people who I know who like to read, maybe like a dozen of those. They read it, they give me their feedback. I do another draft, maybe 2 more drafts of it. And then what happened to me originally was I queried the book to agents, and I got a literary agent in September 2022. But unfortunately, she had the book out in submission to publishers, but then she fell ill around summertime last year, and basically had to step back from the industry entirely. She's no longer an agent, so that left me agentless again. But fortunately for me, I managed to connect with an indie publisher here in the UK, and he took it on board, and he's taken me through the process over the last few months of preparing it and getting the cover done and all that sort of stuff. And he's done a great job with it, and it's been really great to work with. So yeah, it's been published with an actual publisher. In future, I'm gonna try self-publishing some of my stuff as well, because I just want to see how it goes. My wife and I also have a plan in place to eventually launch our own publishing imprint as well. Because she loves to read, I love to write. We're both solopreneurs who are into marketing and stuff like that. So we're going to see if we can combine all of our various skills and interests into that, and see if we can bring other writers into the fold as well. So that's kind of the long-term plan for us.
Cool. And I know another thing that you want to turn your book readers into email subscribers. How do you want to do this?
So this is something I just, I mean, I'm sure other people are doing this as well, but I've added a QR code into the author page on my book. And when people scan the QR code, it will automatically take them to my Substack subscribe page for David Mcllroy fiction. So it just removes the barriers. Like I've seen authors share like their like actual links in their books, like the actual link, HTML link, for their like Facebook page and things like that, and their landing page. And if I was a reader, I would probably not take the time to type that in and go through the whole process of subscribing. But if I can just scan it with my phone and undo it right then and there, I'm far more likely to subscribe. So again, I'll see how it works, see if it has any impact on getting email subscribers. But I think that's a real key. If you can create a loop where people are buying your book and then they're joining your list, then they're buying your next book because of the list, then that's a long-term strategy that might work.
I know you shared that if you can endure the early slow periods of void yelling and trickling income streams, you'll start to see real progress. So I wonder, based on this, what's your motto?
So it's similar to other creators that I've mentioned before, but it's just keep going whenever things aren't happening. I know it's the hardest time to do it, but whenever you're not seeing results, you're not seeing people reading your stuff or subscribers or things aren't really happening, that's the time you just have to push through and keep doing it and keep learning as much as you can. Expect it to take years. It's not going to take weeks or months. All the top creators, it took them years to get to that point. Even the likes of Derek, who you mentioned there, who's kind of on the verge maybe of exploding. He's had to work really hard to get to that point. So it takes a lot of hard work initially and it takes a lot of time. And you have to be willing to accept that because most people don't. Like 99% of people will give up pretty early, and it's the 1% who will stick at it, who will see the fruits of their labor further down the line. And just try and keep it interesting and fun for yourself. Like the process of writing should be an enjoyable thing. If it becomes a chore, then something's wrong. Like you're not enjoying it anymore, and that's an issue. You're probably not gonna last the distance if you don't enjoy it. So keep iterating, keep enjoying the process, and stick at it as long as you can, even whenever things aren't happening.
And how is your dog, and why do you love dogs so much?
So actually, I have two dogs. One's a golden retriever, one's a cockapoo.
Oh,
I grew up with dogs. I love animals. I've always loved animals. My wife and I both do. I mean, I spend like most of my time with them because they're here and I'm here. It's gonna be weird whenever we go on holiday next week for 10 days because it's the longest time we'll have been apart from them and them from us. It's kind of weird, but yeah, I just love dogs. And anybody, if someone shows me a picture of a dog or a video of a dog, then I'll be your friend for life. So yeah, dogs are great.
and I know that you are a huge fan of the Liverpool Football Club.
They're obviously they're struggling right now the last couple of weeks, but yeah, I'm a huge Liverpool fan. I have been for a long time. We're gonna have a new manager very soon. A Dutch manager. Are you Dutch or German?
Yeah,
You're Dutch German, are you?
yeah,
Is that where you're from? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that's what we have a Dutch manager coming in, which is kind of cool. So that'll be nice. We have some Dutch players as well in the team. So looking forward to that. But yeah, I'm a big Liverpool fan. I love playing football. I'm really bad at playing it, but I love watching it. So yeah.
And I know that you are a big hiker. And my
Mm.
hubby and I, we before we had kids, we also spent a lot of time in the mountains. Is that your favorite place in the world then?
Yeah, I love being in the mountains. That's where my main business originally stemmed from, which is my love of hiking. So yeah, I was supposed to be going on a hike tomorrow, but I had to push it back because I have too much to do before we go on holiday. So that's a shame. But yeah, hiking is something we love to do. There's nothing like spending a few hours in the mountains and just getting fresh air and not being on your phone, not being on your computer. Yeah, and it inspired Soulburn, my first book. Like just the mountains that we live near and the mountains I grew up beside as a child. That's the inspiration of my books. So they play a big part in my life, I guess.
What is Northern
Tough one.
Ireland to you in 5 words?
I would say it's small, it's mighty, it's environmentally diverse. Game of Thrones is filmed here, because you can be in the mountains and then within 30 minutes you can be at a beach and then that sort of thing. 30 minutes you can be in a forest. And if you're in a bigger country, you'd have to drive for like hours maybe to get to those kind of places. It's just underrated. Like it's anybody who comes here loves it. The whole of this island we live on is underrated. As you say, it is very green. It is very wet and cold a lot of the time. But yeah, I think I always encourage anybody to come and visit Ireland and Northern Ireland at least once in their life. My wife is a wedding photographer, but she also does engagement shoots for people who come from America. So people come over and she does these surprise engagement shoots on the cliffs of Moher, which is on the west coast of Ireland. And the photos she gets are incredible, and the people who get the photos taken love them. So yeah, it's been a big part of both of our businesses.
I also know that you are a motorhome fan, and I'd like to know, when is your next motorhome trip, and do you know where you're going?
Yeah, so we've actually only done it once. Last year, we drove around part of Ireland. We were given a motorhome for the weekend to try out by a business that I work with, so that was pretty cool. And I never done it before, so I was pretty nervous about driving it because it's a lot bigger than I'm used to driving. But it was brilliant, and like I like fell in love with just the motorhome experience. So I'd love to do it again in future if we can, and I would love to do like a longer trip and maybe go around the whole of Ireland or go to another country and drive around there. But yeah, we're going to Canada next week. We're hiring a car, not a motorhome. And we're just going to stay in different, Airbnbs and stuff like that. But we're going to drive through the Rockies. So we're going to fly to Calgary and then drive through the Rockies to Jasper and then drive back again and just kind of take in the mountains and the fresh air and the forests and the bears and stuff like that. So that should be good fun.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for answering all these personal questions. I think so many people will now already be in love with you and your writing if they check it out. So, David, tell us, how can people connect with you?
So the best place to find me is Substack at the minute. I've got 3 publications there, but if you just type in David Mcllroy into Substack, you'll find me, and then you can find stuff that I'm writing from that point. I'm also on X, Twitter, on LinkedIn. I'm sort of on Instagram, but I don't really use it that much. And I'm on Medium as well. So, and YouTube to some extent as well. So I'm kind of everywhere, but the main place is Substack. And if you go there, you'll kind of be able to spread out from that point.
David, thank you so much for this interview. It was delightful.
Thank you, Kristina. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Alright guys, if you enjoyed that video, make sure to hit subscribe and to check out the next one from me right here.